Hello, hello. This is Christina Barton. You guys are watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barton. Today we're going to be talking about this unhinged rant from Morning Joe Scarborough. I don't know, I can't get over the fact that he attributed to the win of Donald Trump, I guess, and now they can't just take it. And so he went on a crazy rant the other day, and I want to talk about that. But I also want to talk about people on the right who are just asking for things that are just absolutely absurd, particularly on the Trump aisle. So, like un un just crazy wild demands of like DeSantis, crazy wild demands of the RNC, and I just hope that we can all be normal and just be realistic about some things. So I want to talk about that also. I think in my summary I said yesterday was a trans visibility day. It was actually trans remembrance day, and I want to talk a little bit about that because the numbers and how they reach them, and it is it's propaganda. It's propaganda. They want to make people assume that there's some huge epidemic, as if people are being singled out and murdered because they are trans. But the how they get these totals, it could, car accidents and things like that, can be included in the people dying. So I it they want to cause hysteria with this issue, and we want to expose and talk about it a bit, and as well as some other things today. But before we jump into it, I encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Cost of stream, cost to run my website, all that stuff. If you guys can support in that way, I very much do appreciate it. Check out different merchandise that we have available at blacktnews.com. We got mugs and different t-shirts and things that you guys can see. So go ahead and check that out, and please check out my books that are available as well. You guys can find me on Amazon, particularly go check out my book, of course, Guys Blatantly Against Abortion. That is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can get it in paperback, or you guys can get it in ebook. For those of you watching, let me know in the comments if you can hear there's like some feedback in my headphones from my mic. I don't know if that's just in my headphones from my mic, or if you guys can hear that too. If you can, I don't know how to fix it while I'm live. So I just want to know if you guys are picking that up too, and something I should be self-conscious about the entire time that I'm talking. But let me know if it all sounds clear to you. You can't hear it. Thank you very much. So I will just have to be silently tormented myself. So thank you for that peace of mind. So I do usually start with some memes before I get going. I haven't in a couple days, but I do have one today. I already shared this on Facebook, which people seem to really think was funny. So Kyle Rittenhouse, if you guys recall Kyle Rittenhouse, he was the young man who was protecting a store in the midst of a big riot in Kenosha, and he did not he traveled out of state with a firearm. Not true, but he's lived very close to, like, on the border of that town, and the gun never actually like traveled, and there was all this propaganda around the case. I think the biggest stream I ever had was talking about Kyle Rittenhouse and the trial, and breaking down like everything kind of start to finish, and how crazy the riots were and the sort of things that were happening at the time when he decided to go and protect his neighborhood. What good it did, but he ended up having to defend himself, and just fantastic trigger discipline, really. But he ended up defending himself, but killed two people in the process, and he did end up being not charged, not charged, but not found guilty of murder. And so the left never didn't get over that. And but anyway, he wrote a book, and I didn't know that he wrote a book. This is how I found out, with this tweet here from Anne from Maine, and this is a real account. I did look her up. I just added 153,000 copies of Kyle's books to the cart, and it will sit there forever. Ha! So Anne here doesn't understand how carts work. So eventually, I don't know if this was from Barnes and Noble or whatever, but eventually, if you don't get things in your cart, sometimes they'll drop off, and maybe sometimes they won't. But the order doesn't go through until you actually, place the order. So there's that. There's that. Even if Anne placed the order and didn't actually have over $3 million in her account. Let's say you order from Amazon, for example, and you place the order. They don't actually charge you. Amazon doesn't until they're ready to ship it, right? So if you don't have that money in your account, it'll bounce or whatever, and maybe they'll try to charge it like another time, or maybe 2 more times or so. But if it doesn't go through, there no harm, no foul. They don't send you the stuff or whatever. If it's a print on demand situation, they're not going to print those books until the order actually comes through. So it's just like, you don't know how the internet works yet, like internet, but how you buy things on the internet, you know. So many people were like, oh, I wish I could just hit the buy now button on her cart and stuff. I'm gonna assume Anne from Maine doesn't actually have over $3 million to buy all these books, and it'll just be sitting in the cart. When I put something in my cart online, and sometimes you just arrange a cart to see how much things will be as you're thinking about getting something. It doesn't mean that someone is like, oh, it's sitting in someone's cart, I better like put it in this cart right now. Until in preparation for when they hit the click button, it's just going to sit in this cart in the warehouse until they finally put the order through. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. You have to actually go through the order for them to actually start gathering things or making things and whatnot. So and I don't know how many traditional publishers. I don't know how he's published the book. But even like Barnes and Noble has like a print on demand situation now too. So I don't know if they do that with all their books or whatever, but they do have a print on demand warehouses. Like a Amazon has one too for like indie authors and stuff. So yeah, and it's not too bright. And it's not too bright, but a lot of people are saying like, oh, thank you, Anne. I didn't know that he had published a book, so let me go ahead and check that out. I'm curious. I might get it. That was one thing that I really did cover back when it was all breaking news, and it was really really concerning, because it was like a clear cut. Okay, they were trying to kill this kid, and he didn't shoot them until he was like in imminent danger and had reason to believe he was in imminent danger, but people still wanted him to go to jail, and people were concerned about how that would end up affecting Second Amendment rights and self-defense and all kinds of different things. So especially since thank God that there was so much on video, and I also said thank God that he didn't actually kill a black person. And some of you might be confused, like, he didn't kill any black people. He did not. Though it was reported that he had killed some black people in some major media outlets and stuff. And I remember my dad was overseas and I was talking to him about what was going on with Kyle Rittenhouse, and I had wrote an article about, well, a couple articles about it. So my dad checked out one of my articles and he's like, he called me back. He said, I didn't know like most of the stuff that you said in there, and the media had me like believing like a something completely different. He's like, it's really scary what they can make you believe. And my dad doesn't look at like far left media sources or anything like that. And he's usually he was overseas, but he's usually pretty knowledgeable about what's up in the news and other stuff like that. So, and he's not usually doesn't say like something is scary. So just kind of really highlighted how garbage the media was at the time and how much they were really trying to push different narratives. Like Joy Reid was like, "Ooh, this is why we need CRT. What we need CRT in our schools because Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty of murder." Which I explained in the video why how that all connects. But yeah, it was a wild time, very wild time. I do have another Kyle Rittenhouse related meme or tweet that I want to show. Um, uh, Here we go. um, so the people defending Kyle Rittenhouse want you to know that abortion is murder. So Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee said, if Rittenhouse had killed a defenseless baby, we'd feel differently about him. And George Alexopoulos, he said, to be fair, the men he shot love children. So that good comment there, good reminder that he defended himself against some not good people. And by loved kids, we're talking about like inappropriately loving kids. So not saying that that gives you the right to go and shoot people. He was obviously acting in self-defense when those people attacked him. But yeah, we would feel differently if Kyle was going around killing defenseless babies. So it's not the same. Self-defense and murder is not the same. But when you have people who are so gung-ho about like moral relativism and refuse to believe that there's a right and wrong, everything is just kind of subjective, they just get really confused about um these moral lines. And so yeah, these people who think Kyle Rittenhouse should go to jail for defending his life also believe that, hey, you shouldn't have any restrictions on abortion. So yeah, pretty nuts world that we live in. But George Alexopoulos, by the way, he's a comic artist. Let me see if I have any of his comics like loaded up in here to show you guys. But maybe you've seen the one where Joe Biden is like reaching at a black girl and then he like sucks the blackness off of her, or there's a girl who's like baptized in a pool of coke to be less white. And the creepy Joe Biden book, he made that. So he's an artist. I show some of his comics sometimes. I do have an interview with George Alexopoulos in my archive. You go back and find it. But interesting guy. But he actually did a portrait for my sister for her birthday. We commissioned it, and she loves it so much. He did such an amazing job. And it's hanging up at her house. And I don't have that up to show you guys, but you did a great job. Anyway, let's get on to the meat of the day. So, first I want to start with the trans day of remembrance. I'm not gonna touch and talk about it too long. I think I'll do more like a more in-depth video later and actually maybe go through each and every single one I can find information about how each person died, because some if you go through how they calculate how some of these people died, um it could be it doesn't have to be these people were killed because of some kind of um you are trans, that's why I'm murdering you. It doesn't have to be like a actual hate crime for people to be like, oh, there's 20 I think there's 26 people who have died who are trans. We have to remember these people who've died Um, it could be domestic violence situations, which are tragic and awful. But if you are with a partner, or if you're in, uh, if you're with a partner, I'm gonna assume they didn't kill you because you're trans. It could be because of something else that happened. They snapped. They're always abusive. They're crazy. Some kind of passion crime or something, or it could be a lot. These people are sex workers, and there's violent people who engage with the people who are in the sex work. Does it make it right that someone would do something violent like that? I don't think sex work is right either, but the murder is obviously worse. But that's a dangerous profession. They didn't go out and say, let me go kill me a tranny tonight. That's not necessarily what happened. Even like a hit and run or something might not be because they're trans, just something like that. They counted those numbers. Just basically any about homicide. They didn't include numbers of people unaliving themselves, but if it's some kind of homicide, they did not from the list include um the Covenant shooter, which I'm not surprised, a little surprised, I guess. But why would you want to draw that kind of scrutiny, I guess, and have people remember what happened? But I would think that if someone else was shot and killed by police, that maybe they would include them. But this person obviously killed staff and kids. But here's our press secretary talking about it.
Now, today, on Transgender Day of Remembrance, we grieve the 26 transgender Americans who were killed this year. Year after year, we see that these victims are disproportionately Black women and women of color. No one should face violence, live in fear, or be discriminated against simply for being themselves. As the president said, there's still more to do to meet the promise. And it's why this administration has taken urgent action to strengthen rights and protect the safety of transgender Americans and all LGBTQ plus Americans. As we mourn the loss of lives that have been taken too soon, we must also recommit ourselves to never stop fighting until all Americans can live free from the discrimination and also from hate.
Yeah, again, so this is the human rights campaign that came up with this, with those numbers that they're reporting, um, and how they collect their data. They um, they have a list of all these people from last November, and you see trans. Oh, they're all. I mean, trans or identifies that in the um, T community, I suppose, but or non-binary, but you see people on this list who are um they are in drag and other stuff like that. um Again, it doesn't mean that someone went out and was hunting these people down. um they include basically just about any sort of homicide in these sort of numbers. I'm scrolling through it to read through some of the lists. Here we go. We identify victims through daily monitoring of local news and social media. In some cases, loved ones of the victims will reach out to HRC directly to report new case to obtain additional information about each case in order to determine eligibility. We identify the victim's online presence, identity, those memorializing the victim, and reach out to activists in their local community. We do not include every death of a transgender, gender nonconforming, or gender non-binary person to be included. The death must have occurred in the United States, including Puerto Rico and outlying American territories. Deaths which occur in other countries, even if the victims are Americans, are not included. The death must have been committed by another person, either directly or through contributions to the circumstances that resulted in their death. This means that unaliving and death from illness and substance abuse are not included. The cause of death must be confirmed by authorities to be a homicide and or caused by another person. Authorities includes official statements or press reports, official statements from law enforcement and or lawyers and advocates involved in the case. Violence, including structural violence, must also be a component of the circumstances, even if the perpetrator did not set out to kill the victim. So if there was a fight or something and accidentally killed that person, that they would still count that in the number. Thus, the deaths due to robbery, burglary, burglary, hit and run, and vehicular homicide, and deaths which occur at the hands of police while in police law enforcement custody are included in the additional deaths from homicide and manslaughter. So they do include deaths from police. Um, but scrolled through their entire list, looking at each person, and I did not come across. I'm scrolling through it again just in case I missed it. And this is on the Human Rights Campaign website. If you go to like NBC and search for it, they have a link to the data that will talk about all this stuff. I did not see the Covenant shooter. That was this year, I believe, right? Wasn't that earlier this year? Pretty darn positive. Everything begins to blur a little bit. Nope. I do not. Just yep, that happened in March. So, according to their numbers, their standards, they're definitely missing somebody. And I can understand why they want to miss him or miss her. And why they don't want to draw attention to that, because maybe it makes their list a little more absurd. And like 28 people, I believe, like get struck by lightning and killed, in the US. I mean, it's very rare something like that happening. So it's a small, any murder, or not even all of them are murders, or intentional, I intended to kill you, um but they're homicides. um all, when a life is lost, that is tragic. But trying to use that number and promote it as if there is some kind of big endemic situation in United States of America where people are going out and hunting down trans people, is it's just the panic that they're trying to create is just propaganda. It's just propaganda, and it's coming from the White House. It's coming from the White House, not just the White House, Canada. Justin Trudeau was talking about it as well. Other Congress people are talking about it. So it's a thing. It's a day. People draw awareness to it, but the numbers that they're going about doesn't point to some kind of endemic issue. So I'll try to find out each one to lay it out, but I don't, from what I can find about these people, I'm not aware of any case that someone killed them just because they were trans. So just keep that in mind when people talk about these sorts of things. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Morning Joe. Morning Joe, back in like 2015, 16, Donald Trump would go on that show all the time. Mika loved him. They'd have like this kind of nerdy flirting kind of thing going on, and Joe loved Trump and Mika loved Trump, and they loved the ratings that Trump would give them. And then of course all the media loved having Trump on. They say some bad things about him sometime, but he was like the jest, the fool of the court. They felt safe having him around. They wanted to mock him a bit. They'd entertain him, but they didn't know that they were helping. They thought that they were probably helping to secure Hillary, because her big plot to win was actually Trump being the nominee. That was like her insurance plan, because I just surely no one will vote for Donald Trump, right? And so he ended up winning. But when he got the nomination, there's all this negative, uh, content that starts coming out. You got stuff like the Hollywood Access tape, etc. And like, surely this man is going to lose. But they underestimated how much people hated Hillary Clinton, and he obviously took the W. And the media's never been okay since then. Now, Trump has said some pretty egregious things about Mika, and of course, Mika and Joe have their, I believe they're still together. That so I and Trump has said things about Joe, but Trump said some really out of pocket stuff about Mika. Something about like her getting her plastic surgery coming to Mar-a-Lago and how her face looked and all kinds of different stuff. So I can understand them not being too fond of Trump, but they went on a bit of a crazy rant. I think crazy is a good way to put it, the other day. And you could be concerned about how you feel that Trump is going, what Trump has done and the impact that he's had on discourse and politics and what he will and won't do in the future. But this is a bit out there, and I'll let you know why.
To really to tune out the voices of the haters, of the people that are constantly double
shilling
and triple checking and shilling for him and suggesting that somehow they're being biased, bending over backwards, treating him like a normal candidate. He's not a normal candidate. He is running to end American democracy as we know it. He's an authoritarian who a court in Colorado 2 days ago ruled that he led an insurrection against the United States government. He's charged with leading schemes to help overthrow the United States government. So if they want to frame it that way, that's fine. If you want to be fair, then you will frame this as Joe Biden being the candidate that supports American democracy and Donald Trump, a candidate who supports a new form of government here that's authoritarian. It's really that simple. And by the way, Reverend Al, when people go, oh, you can't compare him to past Nazi leaders, you can't compare him to this past Nazi leader or that past fascist leader, because he hasn't done that. Well, what hasn't he done? He hasn't done the things that the American judicial system did not allow him to do last time, but may very well allow him to do this time, or a judicial system that will be ignored by Donald Trump and ran over by Donald Trump to create the greatest constitutional crisis of our lifetimes. Just because he hasn't done it yet doesn't mean he won't do it when he gets a chance to do it. And if he is voted into office, then a lot of these people that are talking about literal or figurative or whatever the hell they're saying, you're going to look like idiots. Because he will get away with, he will imprison, he will execute whoever he's allowed to imprison, execute, drive from the country. Just look at his past. It's not really hard to read. The only thing that stood between him and the destruction of American democracy was the federal judiciary.
So, quite the accusations there, from Joe there. Shout out to, I see someone from the Netherlands, first time checking me out, viewing. I just popped up on your algorithm. That's interesting. Hello. And shout out to everyone in the chat. I did look at all your comments while the video was playing. But in this case here with Joe, Obama did a lot of things that he had to be sued over. Thank God for our checks and balances and our judiciary. Thank God for it. Thank God for our system. Thank God that it's robust, and that the president doesn't have some kind of unilateral power to just do whatever the heck that he wants. And though it appears in the case of like particularly Joe and other folks that they think that they can do whatever they want, but the judiciary pushes back. Now, again, Obama did some things that he was sued a lot over. Trump has been sued, of course. People sued him a lot, like in the judiciary. Biden, of course, had been stopped. Um, so thank God for a judiciary system. Thank God. But Joe Biden will do something that he blatantly knows he doesn't have the power to do. In the past, Democrats have acknowledged that he doesn't have the power to do, and then he'll just go through the courts and get challenged and get shot down, and then he will complain about having a rogue court, and he will delegitimize the court. And you have these left-wing groups that are trying to delegitimize and get rid of, like, Clarence Thomas and other folks like that through their dark money and other stuff. So if you want to talk about Joe Scarborough seems to be very happy that we have our judiciary, but there are people right now in office who are really trying to undermine our judicial system. And there's Democrats who want to pack the courts. And you can say, well, Joe Biden hasn't said he won't pack the court. I would put it past him. I mean, people, even when he was on the campaign trail and people were asking him about on the campaign trail, he's like, I'm not going to answer that question because it will distract people. And they're like, this is a very important question. He's like, I know, but I don't want to get distracted. And then, or what? It's okay. Well, you don't want to answer the question because you think your answer is either going to tick off your base or tick off the people who think that you're moderate. So it's one or the other. And they still elected the man anyway. But yeah, with the student loan forgiveness stuff, Nancy Pelosi's like, the president can't just wait, can't just do it. And so he tried to find a way to claim that he could do it, knowing they'd be struck down. So he go ahead and say, after we're struck down, we have a rogue court, and it's these conservatives and the people think they stole the courts. And then you get people who have these brain dead takes about Trump, who selected 3 justices, and the Senate is, will do the confirmation and the popular vote and et cetera, blah, 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 not understanding how that the Senate represents the states. Or maybe they do, but they just don't care how our system is set up to not be, the wolves vote to eat the sheep. That's what democracy is, right? So that we have a constitutional republic that has safeguards in place, including the system of the checks and the balances. So Joe Biden has done some pretty crazy radical things. If you go back to the COVID and the mandates for the employers that didn't make any sense. I don't care how afraid you were in your bubble at home that COVID was going to come and get you. The mandates for employers didn't make any sense because at this point in time, when they were really pushing it, we knew that the jab didn't stop you from spreading it. But if you had it, then they weren't going to make you do the mandatory testing or whatever. But if you didn't have it, they wanted to make you do the mandatory testing every so often that your employer doesn't have to pay for, that you'd have to pay for to just basically break your will, to make you comply. And it was awful. And he had to get that struck down in court. And he was successful in them keeping in place for like healthcare workers because of like Medicaid or whatever involved. So they're like, oh, well, you take federal dollars, so you have to adhere to this. And that was a disappointing ruling. But that should make you all think twice before you all jump onto we need universal health care and for the government to pay for all of our stuff. Because the more entangled you are with these dollars, apparently the more the control that they actually have over your life. So just that should be a cautionary tale to us all. So if you want to talk about people who are misusing their powers, and thank God for the judiciary system. Yeah, you can point your finger right at the guy who I'm sure you voted for in 2020. So, and the guy that you're probably going to vote for in 2024 if he's the nominee. So, as far as Trump executing people and locking people up, I mean, I'm sure people will point to the non-violent offenders from January 6th who got long sentences. I know someone who did go in the Capitol and nothing violent happened, but they showed up. It was Ryan Kelly. It was a big story. So, he ran for governor, and in the midst of him going up the polls a bit, he got raided. He said there's a ton of people who raided his house and messing up his stuff and, doing all that in front of his kids. And why they waited so long to even do that, I don't think it was any secret that he was there at the time. Was pretty interesting. But why do you think Trump's going to lock people up? Because if you go back to 2016 and people were talking about Hillary Clinton and her emails and the lock her up chants, etc., and people being so alarmed by it, immediately, and Trump even said to her, like, she was like, "Good thing you're not the president." He's like, "Yeah, because you'd be in jail," and that was a pretty feisty debate. That was a second debate with him and Hillary Clinton, unforgettable. But right after he was elected, right after he won, and people started to lock her up, he's like, no, we're good. He's like, that was fun during the campaign, but nah, it's over. And then he had and I was there, by the way, in the crowd when he did that. So in other words, that was a shtick. I don't know how many people were in the crowd, which I was not a lock her up chanting person, but I don't know how many people in the crowd believed that wholeheartedly, but he wasn't very interested in it. And after the election, he had an interview and they asked him about it. He's like, I don't want to hurt her. He just kind of want to let it go. And even to this day, Hillary Clinton, there was the Russia collusion stuff that, she largely started. And will call her still. She's like, she's not crooked Hillary anymore. She's a beautiful Hillary. So he doesn't really seem to have that mean bone of we're gonna go and just lock up people. I think he's most maybe jaded by the fact that because some people are like, oh well, they didn't come for Hillary, but now they want to lock Trump up for his alleged mishandling of documents or other stuff that he's it's alleged he did in the 91 counts. And well, they never said that they wouldn't lock anyone up. So his error is probably assuming that that maybe they would treat him the way that he had treated them as well. And they're not playing for those rules. They'll never forgive Donald Trump for winning in the first place. So anyone who thinks that Trump is going to go hard after all these people and just hold folks accountable is just some kind of mean streak or something, and I know there's people who said that they want to vote for Trump solely for retribution. If him winning and being the president again is good enough retribution, that's probably all that you're gonna get. That's probably all that you're gonna get. He didn't even mass arrest people during like the riots and stuff. He was like, if you want me to help you, I need the states to say something. And they arrested some people like on like federal property doing some stuff, but that was it. It's not like he didn't declare martial law to enforce mandates with COVID. He didn't do any sort of martial law or something when there was all the riots across the country, the BLM stuff. He if Joe's like, just look at the history. I'm talking about Morning Joe, not Joe Biden. But if you just look at the history of Trump, it just doesn't compute that he's going to arrest people and execute people, and it's only the judiciary that stopped him. That you're fired kind of personality from Trump. I love the show Apprentice, but it's and he did fire a lot of people, within his own administration and stuff. But it's that hard kind of edge, that people have in mind, that gangsta Trump, image of him in jail and stuff, like he's gonna go so hard. That's kind of a bit more theater. Execute people. The only thing he's talking about executing is like some the stuff with the drug dealers and stuff, but I wouldn't take that too seriously either. And some of that, he had an interview with Brett Baer about some of his policies now, where he wants to give like death penalties to take drug dealers and other stuff like that. And he mentioned that one person that was released because of like I don't know if he was either his pardon or his First Step Act, that person would have been executed under his new plan. And Trump just he was like, he didn't know, and he was just thinking about it like, it was a not great moment for Trump in the interview. Um, but yeah, I think it's like, some stuff is so much talk for him, and you could say, well, January 6th, there was this big plot, there was this big riot, and he was trying to overthrow the country. I think John Bolton is correct. Like, well, John Bolton was like, I've seen coups. Like, we've done coups before. This was not a coup. No, it wasn't a coup. It was Trump was throwing everything against the wall because he whether he 100% believed that he won, and was pursuing avenues, or he knew that he had lost, but he was seeing how he could still disqualify some votes to win, is to be seen, and we'll hear that play out in trial. I have not, by the way, people who have flipped on him and stuff, I haven't heard anything as of yet, of anyone saying, yeah, Trump acknowledged that he lost. I haven't heard that before. Maybe Mark Meadows or someone else will say something to that effect. I have not heard that, and someone could say that, but I don't know. I don't know if they can prove that he knew that he had lost and was still trying to overthrow whatever, as opposed to trying to justify a situation. There were people who told him that he lost, who were close to him, and you could argue he should have agreed with them. But as you saying that he knew that he lost, that's an argument that still has to be made and proven. But it just kind of seemed like they were throwing anything the wall to make it stick. And then January 6th was a riot, 100%, like, sure. And there's a lot more footage that has come out that they've released, and people are going through it and being like, look, these people walking through the halls and it was peaceful. There are some videos that definitely make the MAGA folks who were there look bad. So it's, it's a mixed bag, certainly, for sure. But yeah, was there some kind of mastermind situation going on? No. Mm-mm. He's just not that guy. I'm sorry. So yeah, crazy unhinged rant from Morning Joe. Trump is not gonna be rounding up his political opponents and then executing them. And if there was even a whiff of that, don't you think he'd be like immediately impeached? And then what is he going to do? It's not like people aren't afraid to impeach him because it's happened twice. And once they do it again, are they just kind of rid of him at that point? So he's gonna be a lame duck the moment he's elected. He does not have he's kind of unchained from the idea of needing to do anything to be elected, but when someone could literally impeach you and just kick you out, which they would probably be more likely to do in this scenario, no, he's not going to do crazy kind of stuff. At least not to the effect that Joe Scarborough is alleging. So, unhinged. I rate that rant unhinged. Other things that I find to be unhinged, there's some influencers on the right, like Jack Posobiec. He's is with Human Events. They have some kind of merger or whatever with T-Post Millennial and stuff too. But he had put out something about DeSantis the other day, or something that DeSantis should do that was just really nutty. Just really nutty. So he's like, you don't even see DeSantis talking about having Biden off the ballot in Florida. He has total control of the state, but doesn't even threaten it because in his mind, it's against the rules, not built for this. My man. I don't think that the governor of Florida, and I don't know why you're specifically picking on the governor of Florida and not all the other governors or whatever. You don't see Abbott saying, hey, we're going to kick Joe Biden off the ballot, and other folks saying that. But you're picking on DeSantis. Granted, DeSantis is running. But that's unhinged. He doesn't have the power to just decide that Joe Biden isn't going to be on the ballot in Florida. He doesn't have that power to just do. And on what grounds, sir? What grounds? So saying that he won't even dare to do that, to just exercise like some kind of tyrannical power within his state to just make it so, to rig the election so Trump would win, to get those votes away from Biden. I mean, take those votes away from Biden so he has no shot, which Florida's pretty freaking red right now. And I'm not saying it's not impossible for a Democrat to win in Florida, but they have pretty much decimated the Democrat Party in Florida. And instead of being a swing state, it's, DeSantis won by like plus 19. So, I mean, and Trump won, in Florida and stuff, but, it's the Republicans are very, very strong in Florida. So, needing to do that seems absurd. So why write something like this? Because and I know there are people who are like, yep, in his comments and stuff. And he ended up getting a community note for that. And then he was like annoyed by the community note. And maybe it's because when you put community notes on stuff, it's not going to be monetized or whatever. They started tying like the money that creators make. They get penalized for community notes when they post something that's not true. And maybe it's engagement farming. Because as far as it being a dig on Ron DeSantis, because Jack is, he acknowledges Ron DeSantis is a great governor, but he wants Trump to be the president again. And thinks basically, we should just all coalesce right now and just screw the rest of the primaries. It's not a good hit on DeSantis. It's not. It's really not. So, I rate that tweet unhinged, guys. I rate it unhinged, and I don't. Maybe the motivation is just engagement farming, perhaps. But a lot of people. I'm so frustrated with so many of these influencers with so much reach to people and a lot of people who trust their opinion, and then they say stuff like that that's just crazy and completely out of step from reality. And just deep into the bias. Like everybody has a bias, right? I have a bias. You have a bias. We all have a bias, but you could still be fair and rational. Excuse me. I started getting that tickle in my throat and I may cough, but it's not rational. This isn't rational. Yeah. So, oh gosh. Jack, what are you doing? What are you doing? So there's also a tweet by Charlie Kirk that I wasn't too fond of. So there's two that I want to show you. So so Donald Trump was talking about his polls that were released. Best ever, Harvard Harris, Trump 67%, DeSantis 9%, a Bird Brain 8%. That's what we call Nikki Haley. Ramaswamy 5%, Christie dead in the water, a total loser. Trump up 7% to 10% on crooked Joe Biden. RNC must save money on lowest ever ratings debates. Use it against the Democrats to stop the steal. If not, revamp the RNC now. And so, Kirk just highlighting this tweet or whatever. And to Trump, they raised a lot of money for Stop the Steal, and it was after the election. They're like, give to the election integrity or whatever, and people thought there was an election integrity fund. There was not. They just kind of put divvied up the money between the RNC and Trump and the Trump campaign. And I'm not saying they didn't have lawsuits and stuff that they fought, but for like an election integrity fund, that a specific fund for that did not exist. And the RNC should and is supposed to facilitate those debates. Do they need as many debates as they're having? They had a lot in 2016. Obviously didn't have any in 2020 because Trump was incumbent. But we should have debates. Not all of them have been great. The one before last was just trash. The one that they just had that was on NBC was pretty good. It was pretty substantive, and they talked about some got into the nitty gritty of things like Social Security and other things that are important to Americans that we need to discuss. It's a job interview, and people need to show up for the job interview. And um, if Trump isn't even going there, so what does he care? He's not even participating in those debates. Though I do feel that he at least owes it to people to stand up for his record, because not everything that he did, especially in his last year of office, was amazing. So and there's a lot of things that he's done between that time of not being president to today, that he could be questioned about, um, for sure. But I don't think he wants to be questioned on those things, because if you're way in the lead, why would you, I guess, open yourself up to those kinds of attacks? And I get the strategy of that. I can't say that I think it's for the voters, but I definitely understand it. Um, and then I think there's also things that they could ask him about his court cases that could put him in a bigger bind. So that's probably also part of why he won't do the debates. And if that's the case, that does show his weakness as an overall candidate. But he's the guy people want. But if he's so far ahead, as all these polls seems to suggest, I don't understand the outrage and the anger. Just let the kids play and let them fizzle out, and he'll be the nominee. It is what it is. If that's what's going to happen. But I've said this before, they're not acting as if it's in the bag. If it's in the bag, why, if you want to talk about saving money, why is Trump or Nikki Haley and a bunch of people spending so much money attacking Ron DeSantis? Why do they spend so much time and energy attacking Ron DeSantis if it is all locked up for Trump in the primaries? And maybe it is, but their actions aren't lining up with what they're talking about, even though the data all points to this particular outcome. So it's a bit puzzling. But Charlie Kirk also said something, but he didn't really say anything in that last tweet. He was just kind of highlighting what Trump said. But he did say this. This is so the RNC is suing of Arizona because there's or they're suing because there's a party that's trying to get on the ballot. Some of their signatures are bad, which candidates and other folks do that all the time. So, but he said this is what the RNC should be doing instead of hosting these worthless debates. As frustrated as many of us are with the party, we cannot allow any group to splinter the MAGA vote and toss away Arizona. The fight in Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia will determine the White House. No, the RNC should be hosting debates. They should be hosting debates. The voters want to hear. If they don't, they can tune out, which a lot of people have. But I'm interested in the debates. A lot of people are interested in debates and want to hear what the candidates have to say. So just let it happen. Let it play out. We will know within like 2 primaries whether the whole thing is over. After like Iowa and New Hampshire, we'll pretty much know if there's any shot for anyone else. And after Iowa, some more people probably drop out. After New Hampshire, people will undoubtedly drop out. We will know what's going to happen. Maybe it'll take to South Carolina before Trump is like the last one standing. But just let it happen. Just let it play out. There's no harm in it. And they'll say the harm is wasting time and wasting money. But the candidates are wasting time and wasting money if there's no point to it all. So go preach to your man, as opposed to the RNC, who has a duty to the voters. So what's I have to say, I'm so annoyed when people have tweets like this, or there's other tweets and different emails from the Trump campaign and other folks saying, hey, we need to get rid of the primaries, stop the primaries, Trump is the guy, let's just coalesce, etc., blah blah blah. No vote has been cast. Think about that. People are just saying let's end the primary. People spend a lot of money at the primaries, which candidates tend to do, and don't go anywhere, granted. But there's been no votes cast. Let's just end the primary before there's any votes cast. Calling up people and answering questions for the pollsters or whatever is not the same as people going to caucus or people going to their polling place and actually casting a vote. It's not the same. So there's no harm again in just waiting a little bit. But what really annoys me about it, and people who have been with me for a while know that I have experience with like elections and stuff. I did run myself in a I ran for state rep and then actually Congress. It was in the same year. Long story, but my story is not important as far as me running. But my sister, my older sister, she ran for chair of the Michigan Republican Party in 2019 against Laura Cox, who was the wife of the former Attorney General of the state, and she was also served in the House legislature. So people, when she announced, she had the backing of like the kingmaker who like was the chair before and helped Ronna McDaniel, who's the RNC chair now, to win and stuff. And so Laura Cox was like the tap person to do it. And there was all these endorsements that they had like automatically lined up, including Brad Parscale, who was the Trump campaign. He was a Trump campaign manager at the time. Trump himself didn't say anything, but it was a Brad Parscale, which was like pretty much the Trump, a signed, sealed, delivered situation. And so they're like, okay, this is the person, and it was her against my sister, and we're like, oh, we're gonna run, we're gonna give people a choice, and we don't, we think that we could do things different. My sister was she started out working in the Detroit office. She worked her way up to end up being over 3 different counties in Michigan. I think it was 3 different counties. And then eventually she went to the RNC. Ronna brought to the RNC, and she was the urban engagement chair, over urban engagement director and the women's director. So she moved to the federal level. So she had a perspective on the ground up. She had actually a lot of experience within the state party, and her co-chair was also a good fundraiser as well. So we had a good package, and we had a great. I was a creative director, so I did her videos and stuff. So we were on target with messaging. We listened to people, what they wanted, and the different grassroots, etc. And so the grassroots liked us, but also we had good relationships with people we had worked with within the party. So it was like a well-rounded option. So we were like, no, we're gonna keep running and stuff. We were threatened. They ran stuff in the paper to embarrass my sister. They lied about different stances that she had, like, because one time she ran, and sometimes you'll be recruited to run for a space. So she lived in Detroit for a little while, and so sometimes they just want people to run, so Republicans have someone to vote for on the ballot. You can't win, like Detroit's like 80, well, Detroit was overwhelmingly Democrat, so she wasn't going to win in the area that she ran for, but they wanted a Republican on the ballot, so she put her name on the ballot, but she wasn't like a candidate who expected to win. So that when you are a candidate, all these people will send you different surveys and stuff. And so she didn't fill out all the surveys because she didn't expect to win, and she was working for the party at the time. They were like, will you do this? She did it. So because she didn't fill out a particular survey, they were like, oh, she's pro-choice, because she didn't fill out the survey and say that she was pro-life. Now, if you guys have followed me for a while, that's pretty absurd, because I might be one of the most pro-life people that you know. Now, that doesn't automatically make my sister pro-life, but we're very pro-life. So, and mind you, Laura Cox didn't fill out the same survey like the next cycle later, which we ended up finding out because someone in the organization was mad about the lies, so they tipped us off. So we go to different events, and they would set up stuff to purposely try and embarrass us, but they pushed so hard that people could see that they were trying to harass us. They would there were people who were afraid to endorse her, and my sister would just tell people, don't endorse me. There was one state rep who wanted to endorse my sister, and then they had to call back, and they're like, I didn't understand how things worked. I'm really sorry. And she's like, it's okay. But people behind the scenes were like, it's a good thing it's a secret ballot. I think she'll do well on this since it's a secret ballot. And they tried to get us kicked off the ballot. They they were mad that when you get on the ballot, you have to have the district chairs like sign on to it. They were angry that the chairs even signed on to allow her to be the nominee. But despite everything that happened, we're like, the people want adoption. We're not going to let them bully us out of this. And we're going to keep persisting forward. And they were messing with us so much that other people were calling like the campaign managers, like, leave these girls alone. They're just making things worse. So anyway, we traveled all across the state. We were working pretty hard and giving people our vision. There are people who would be, for her opponent, and then she talked to them and could flip them within like 30 seconds to a minute. And she's a beautiful young girl. Not that totally matters, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. So anyway, when it got to the point where it was like the convention weekend or close to it, I have it on good authority that we were, like, according to data and stuff, that we were trending to actually win. And so word got out to our opponents who just thought they had it in the bag for whatever reason. And so then they panicked. And so that day on of convention, the reason why I would say that she lost, my sister did end up losing, it was close, but she ended up losing, is because the RNC chair, the current RNC chair, which I've told the story on social media and stuff before, so it happened, it's real, it's true. She was actually on the floor whipping votes, which for Laura Cox. And she was going around saying, this is the person who the Trump team wants. And, was telling people to vote for Laura, and people who didn't really want to or whatever, but they're like, okay, well, that's what Ron is saying. That's what she's saying that the Trump team wants, etc. And was flexing her authority to actually go on the floor and do that. I thought that was kind of inappropriate for her to do, but that's what she did. And she didn't even say hello to my parents. Mind you, me and my sister both worked for her. And she didn't even say hello to my parents or we were backstage. And she's lucky my parents are Christian. Because my mom was very upset about that, and upset how people were treating us throughout the entire situation. But anyway, it was close. And my sister's closing speech was, don't quit. And when they slander your name, like, don't quit. I don't remember what all she said. It was very short, but that was the gist of it. People were very inspired and happy about that. The fact that she wouldn't just back down. So I saw people who were like so upset because, it didn't go the way that they wanted it to. People who were so invested, crying on the floor, on their knees, who were just so upset. I was like, man, it's really something for people to cheer you on like that, to be so heartbroken that you lost. So it just ticks me off when people are like, no, we shouldn't even have a choice. We should just stop. Like, no, before anyone casts a vote, just let the chips fall where they may. Like, it already looks like Trump is going to win. And if that's what's going to happen, then let that be. But don't degrade the voters and pretend like their voice doesn't matter at the end of the day. And you can say, well, the polls say this. Not everybody's polled. Not everyone is polled. There's still time to decide. It's called election day. There are dates for that to actually happen. Don't cancel everything just because you like the guy so much. Like, this is a process. Just deal with the process. And a lot of people don't want to have elections because they don't want the hassle of having to run, to have to defend themselves, to go talk to the people, to shake the hands and kiss the babies and all that stuff. There have been many times when people made deals, backdoor deals, to get people out of the races where they're running for Congress or they're running for a convention race. And I've seen it many times. And just, to be frank, no one even like bothered to make a deal. They just, I guess, thought that they would, intimidate us and bully us. Like, they even had like her friends like text her to like relay threats all kinds of crazy things for the race. So they forced strong arm people who did not want to endorse get up and endorse Laura and stuff. So it was a crazy time. I'll never forget it. And it is what it is. And by the way, that was a very unsuccessful cycle with Laura Cox. Afterwards, they pretty much failed miserably. That was 2020. But I'm proud of how we ran the race. That we didn't really go negative. There was like one thing we did to kind of clear our name with the abortion thing, and just be like, "Hey, Laura did this," and we did like one time put out a message of some of the stuff that they were doing to us. But I could have I made hit pieces for this Michigan Republican Party. So if I wanted to do scorched earth, we could have did that. But at the end of the day, we wanted to do what was best for the Republican Party, and we didn't want to do scorched earth that would possibly damage the party going forward if we had won. At the end of the day, we were always looking forward to the future. And so there's a problem that I have really with Trump right now, that it's so about him and the loyalty and being mad at other people if they don't get in line, that he doesn't mind undermining everyone else and their victories and what they want to do for their states and etc. If he doesn't mind if he has to torch them all for his sake. And I don't think that that's appropriate for someone who's supposed to be the leader of the party. That's how people view him. So just let the process play out. And the more people push back and insist that we shouldn't have one, it just ticks me off. And it makes me really not want him to win, to be frank. Not that I don't want Biden to win up, obviously, but it just makes me dislike him. It pushes me to the point. So just allow the process to go the way it's supposed to go. Just allow it to play out. Don't tell the voters that they should not have a say, because that's what you're saying when you're like, cancel the primaries, no more debates, etc. Blah blah blah. Everyone coalesce. Etc. I can understand wanting to get the jump, but this is an open primary. He is not the incumbent. He's not. He feels that way to a lot of people, but he is not. So everybody can make the pitch. Now, do I think all these people in the race should be in the race? No. Like, I don't even understand what Chris Christie was doing there last time. Tim Scott bowed out. But Chris Christie wasn't even like his fiery, like anti kind of Trump voice. And he was kind of very muted. So I think, I don't know, the sooner it gets down to like DeSantis, Haley, Trump will be the better, because I think those are the ones who are like seriously running for the presidency. But DeSantis's voters aren't going to run over to Haley, but Haley's voters could go over to DeSantis. So I don't excuse me, I don't think it's possible for her to win the primary. I really do think it's a two-man race. But the voters get to decide, the voters get to choose. So don't write them off before they even cast a vote. Because the strong arming, the insistence that we should, it just, is not fair to the people who want to have their voices heard and have the option. People want to have an option, so just let it happen. And those are my 2 cents, guys. And thank you for listening to my rant. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because this does cost a stream and all that stuff. So if you can, I appreciate it. Check out different merch that we have in the store, like the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. That's one of the many pieces that we have online at the website. So go ahead and check that out. You guys can also check out my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, as well. That's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I have all different kinds of books that you guys can check out. Two of my books are nonfiction. This is one of my nonfiction books. The rest are fiction books. I write historical fiction, fantasy, children's chapter books, etc. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out my stuff. And I thank you guys who have checked it out. There was another post that I was going to get to, but I'll table that to tomorrow. And Tomorrow is Wednesday, right? Yes, tomorrow is Wednesday, and then Thursday is Thanksgiving. I don't plan to do a Thanksgiving stream as of now or anything. So tomorrow will probably be my last stream of the week. And so I hope you guys will join me tomorrow. God bless you, and I'll see you